Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have Mary Ellen Murrah with Vista, Chief Marketing Strategist, and just all around genius when it comes to marketing and management. And also, you were telling me you worked like 17 years with needles, and I guess our paths crossed. I just didn't, I was not into weeds with needles, to be honest with you. But anyway, thank you for being on the podcast. I'm looking forward to this one.
I am too. Thank you so much for having me, Ken. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. And for people that don't know about Vista, can you tell them a little bit about Vista and y'all's group?
Yeah, absolutely. So Vista, our tagline is the business resource for plaintiff law firms. And I think that is such a good description of what we do. We are a group of operations and management consultants. We work exclusively with plaintiffs' personal injury law firms across the US and Canada. And really, we help them with everything under roof that doesn't have to do with the practice of law, but really the business of running a law firm. As we know, all of the firms that we work with, they're businesses. They just happen to practice law. And if they can look at it as running it like a business and not necessarily just, hey, we're a law firm and we need to be really in the weeds with the strategy of practicing law, those are the firms that really succeed. So we have the benefit of being able to go into many firms across the US and Canada and help them with best practices, help them with culture, help them with their accounting, with their intake, with their case management, with what their journey of a case looks like from the time of intake all the way through resolution. And then we've got a couple of other things that we do, like talent acquisition and fractional CFO, just all of those things that have to do with the business of running a law firm.
And y'all been in business, I know, about as long as we've been in business. Pilma, over 15 years, if I remember correctly. I think Tim was saying this.
Absolutely. We're celebrating our 15th year this year.
Yeah. And I don't know when this is going to air, so it might already be over with, but y'all do some conferences too. You're doing this leadership conference in Vegas, which I plan to be there. I think I'm going to share the stage with Tim Mackey, who I respect dearly. Great guy. Smart guy.
Yes, we're very, very excited to hear from you and our CEO, Tim. I think the two of you have seen a lot of changes throughout the years in this industry and really both, I think, been forces to reckon with. So very excited to be able to pick your brains on what you've seen and get that collective wisdom.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it too. So let's talk about something, because like me, y'all been around the block. You've said last 15 years and you've seen changes, but what I'm sure, I know y'all go to firms and do an audit, but I know y'all look at, I don't know what the 10 things are, but you look at 10 things, if I remember correctly, and go through and then give you recommendations on what needs to be improved. I guess is a kind way of saying it. I would call it fixed or started or whatever. But I guess the big deal is what are the top 3, 4, 5 that you see consistently? And I know what one of them's got to be, because what little bit of consulting I used to do, I don't do it anymore, but there's one thing I knew I could always bring value, because I know nobody's got this down. But you tell me, I want to hear from you. This is not about me.
Okay, perfect. And you're absolutely right. Part of our process is really spending a couple of days on site at a firm and getting to know. We send a survey prior to going out to get to know their team and their owners. And then we spend some time under roof just trying to figure out what's going on there, which is very eye-opening. And it's important that it's on site too, because I think when you're there on site, you really get an idea of the look and feel of that firm, the culture of that firm, how people treat each other, how people act in the hallways, things like that, which is sometimes eye-opening and interesting. And I'm very curious to know what your top thing is. But the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that question, and maybe it shouldn't be the first thing, but it's the first thing that comes to my mind, is I think a lot of times where I see opportunities for improvement is firms don't do what I think is the most important thing with their team, and that is to give them the tools, training, and expectations to do their job. We hear so much from firms, from owners, oh, my team should know this, or I'm frustrated because I hired this person that came from another firm and they're not performing in the way that I really thought they should be performing. And that's, I think, one of the huge opportunities for improvement. We as leaders, we have a we have a charge. We have a calling to take care of the team. And the way we do that is through tools, training, and expectations.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, we have to give, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, one of my mentors a long, long time ago, when I was building my firm, he was a retired IBM executive. I brought him in to help, because he really was smart. And he said 95% of the time, if people are failing at their job, it's not their fault. It's your fault, Ken, because you didn't do the proper training. That stuck with me for years and years and years and years and years. He said, so don't blame them, blame yourself. You got to go. I said, what do I do? He said, you go back, retrain them. He said, I'm not going to say that it's 100%. He said, but 95% of the time, it's not their fault. It's your fault. So that just run with me forever and ever and ever.
Yep, I completely agree. And what I mean by tool, training, and expectations, we need to give people the tools to do their job, right? And that looks like a whole bunch of different things. I mean, your case management software is one tool to do your job. Making sure you have functional equipment, functional technology is a tool to do your job. Sometimes consultants are a tool that helps you do your job, but all of those things are the things that help you, even down to, do I have a comfortable chair? Do I have a computer that works to sit at? Those are all.
Yeah, I would get, if somebody didn't like the chair there when I hired him, I'd tell them to go down to the store down there, the office equipment store, and pick them out one. I said, you got $500 budget. I want you to feel comfortable because you got to be sitting here 8 hours a day. I want you comfortable, right?
Exactly.
I mean, people thought I was crazy, but to me, it was important.
Crazy like a genius. No, and then, training, and not just, people hear training and sometimes they think that means training on doing this particular job. How do I write a demand? Things like that, or training on case management software. And all of those things are absolutely vital and important. But I think where we sometimes fall apart on training is in things like leadership. I mean, if we are going to promote somebody, if you've got a really killer intake specialist and they get the opportunity to move into the position of director of intake, and you think this person's a killer intake specialist, they're going to really do a great job at being intake director, but I've given them absolutely no training on how to manage people. I've given them absolutely no training on how to be a leader, how to have tough conversations, how to look at reports. There's so many things that we think may come innately to someone because they are good at their job. And it's those firms who are able to give that next layer of leadership training to their team that really set their emerging leaders up for success.
If you had to recommend a book, I mean, what would be the book you would say? I love multipliers, but I know you probably know something better than that. What book would you say? Because we do have what is it? I think somebody taught me you need a leader, not a manager, but a leader for every 8 people in your law firm. So you need to train these people, because if you get bigger, if you don't have them, you're not going to scale like you need to, right?
100% right. And multipliers popped into my head as soon as you said that. One that I've really been interacting with a lot lately that I really like is called Spark Brilliance. It's by somebody named Jackie Insinger. And we've actually on Vista, we try to really practice what we preach. So we've got some of our leaders going through this Spark Brilliance program and interacting with this book. And it's been really eye-opening about, as a leader, how you interact with your team, how you connect with your team. And she talks a lot about the platinum rule. Everybody knows the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. But really, as leaders, we should be practicing the platinum rule, which is treat others the way they want to be treated. I only know my own self and what I like. I don't know what everybody on my team is, what gets their juices flowing, what's a comfortable conversation for them, how they like to receive feedback. So that's a really great book that helps you.
Called Sparks.
Conversation. Spark Brilliance.
Spark Brilliant by who?
Jackie Insinger.
Jackie Insinger.
It's a great one.
That's my next read.
I love it. It's super approachable. It's one of those books, like so many things in our life, that it's almost more of a reminder. Some of the concepts in there, they're not these like crazy things that you would never think of. They're things that but reading them and reading the science behind them really gives you a reminder of why some of those things are so important and why we as leaders should pay attention to them.
Okay. All right. That's
all right. So tools and training. Now I get expectations, right? So I think this is the part that firms sometimes fall down on. And this is where we hear that, hey, my team should know this. How should they know this? If they did this differently at their firm, if their firm prior to coming to yours was set up where maybe they didn't have to order medical records, there was a department to do that. And now the expectation is they're ordering them, they're following up on them, but they've never been told that that's a part of their job. They don't have a set of KPIs. They don't have a job description. They don't have a scorecard. They don't know what success looks like at their firm. And so how do they know if they're doing a good job? How do they know if they're meeting the expectations? So I think that's one of those like fundamental pieces that law firms can put into place that then lets them do that next thing that I think is an opportunity for improvement at law firms is hold your team accountable. We can absolutely lead with love. We can absolutely take care of our team. And part of that means holding them accountable.
Yeah. I always used to call myself the benevolent dictator. If I was nice, but really, but firm. You know what I'm talking about? Fair, but firm, but everybody knew. You know, when I was interviewing people before I would hire them, when I made my staff, my people that were doing the hiring, I wanted them to tell them what our expectations were, but also wanted to know what their expectations were of us. I think everybody, I think it's a two-way street. What are they expecting out of the job? I mean, where do they want to go with this thing? You know, and if they don't know, then they're probably not a good fit because they're not really, they're not hungry. That's the only way, not just for money, but to grow and learn. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. And I think that takes me maybe to the next thing that I think we see sometimes law firms fall down on, and that is in that hiring process of, what I look for is somebody who's done this job before, but really what I should be looking for is somebody who is a fit for who we are as a firm, for what our personality is. I should be hiring for culture. And that, just as you just described, that interview process, that process of talent acquisition, it's a conversation. It's like dating. Not everybody is the right match for everybody else. And so you need to have both sides of that and ask that person what they're looking for, what their values are, how they're going to fit in with the team that you already have in place, if they're going to fit in with the team that you already have in place, because not everybody is the right fit. And sometimes we make a mistake and we bring somebody in and they're not the right fit and we let them hang on. We give them the tools, training, and expectations, and we still don't do the thing we know needs to be done, is to free up their future and let them go somewhere else. It's going to be the best for our firm. It's going to be the best for them.
I got a question on this hiring because I've got my opinion, but I want to know what your opinion is. Do you think lawyers all the time, I just can't find anybody with experience. And I want to tell you, I'll go ahead and tell you my viewpoint is I don't care about experience. What I care about is attitude and aptitude. And like you said, they're going to fit in with our culture. I can teach them the skill set. I can't teach them to be hungry. I can't teach them to know how to deal with clients and know how to deal with their teammates. I can't teach that. I mean, I can, but you either got that or you don't. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but I want your viewpoint on it.
No, amen. I think, we talk a lot at Vista about how there's two kinds of firms. There's training firms and there's non-training firms. Training firms are the one who are very comfortable taking somebody who's super green, who has no experience, and really training them up, giving them everything they need on how to do those individual jobs. And for a firm like that, absolutely. I feel like you want somebody who you can mold, who you can teach. You want somebody who's going to fit your culture and be a fit with the rest of your team, but 95% of what they're doing, you're going to be able to train them on. And you want to train them on the way your firm does it, because everybody's firm is a little bit different. And sometimes people that come in from other firms come in with bad habits from other firms, or come in with ways that they do things at other firms that don't really fit the mold of how you do it at your firm. But then there are some firms that are non-training firms. Those are the firms that I think are very ripe for some help sometimes, because they just, their hair is on fire. They don't think they have the time to do it right. And so they just want to bring somebody in who already knows how to do the job. But those are the firms that often struggle with their culture and really have the opportunity to get some of those infrastructure pieces in place so they can do it in a different way. But I totally agree with you.
So if you were advising a firm, how would you start this out? If you had no training, what would you, like if I was I had a H&L university, we called it that, but how would you tell somebody, because they do say, I don't have time, I don't have a person to do it. How would you start this out for the law firm? If there are law firm owners out there listening to this, and they say, well, this sounds great, Mary Ellen and Ken, but I don't even know where the hell to start. What would you tell them?
Well, and a lot of firms say that. And I think a lot of firms struggle with that. So they just throw up their hands and say, hey, I don't know what to do here. And I think everybody you probably see it at your events and with your masterminds. Everybody's looking for that magic bullet, that shiny thing that, oh, if I go to this conference or if I do this one thing, it's going to fix everything at my firm. It's going to triple my revenue and everything's going to be great. And I think you and I both know there is no such thing as the magic bullet or the pixie dust. It's work. And you have to take that time. I know everybody says they don't have time, but it's another book that I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with. Seth Godin talks about the dip and how you have to, every time you're putting an improvement process in place, there's going to be a dip in productivity before you see the results, before you see the gains of what you've done. So you have to be prepared for that. You have to say, look, this might suck for a short time for me to put some of these things into place, but the benefit I'm going to see from pulling my car over to the side of the road and changing that tire before I try to go speeding down the highway is really going to pay dividends. So you can start small. I mean, I think everybody wants to try to do everything at once, and that's where you have that paralysis. But sometimes, getting those SOPs in place, getting those procedures in place, it starts with, we likely have something. We likely have somebody at the firm, a paralegal, somebody, an office manager who's really good at doing this thing or knows this thing well. Have them document that procedure. It might look rough. It might look ugly. It might not be the pretty procedure manual that you're imagining, but you're getting something down. You're capturing that institutional knowledge in a place. And as you go over time and you have different people in different departments who are good at what they do, you assign somebody to aggregate that, put that together, and that starts to be the beginning of your standard operating procedure manual. That starts to be the thing that you can use for new people that come into your firm. And you take it bites at a time. It is eating an elephant. You have to take it bites at a time. Once you get those SOPs into place, hey, well, now we've got a documented system of how we put things into our case management software. Awesome. Now that's going to help us get reports out of our case management software, which, by the way, is another one of those, couple of things that I think firms get wrong, is that they're not looking at reporting. But, we got to start somewhere. So we get that information into our case management system. Now we can start looking at those reports and some of those things that maybe we were doing by feeling. Once we actually see the raw data there, we can say, hey, now I can make an informed decision based on this data. Now I can move forward. And then you're in then you've leveled up to this level and you got to work on this. Then you've leveled up to this level and you've got to work on this.
It's a
But
process.
it all starts.
Yeah, that's what we talk about this in mastermind sometime. And I say, get your processes down and don't one person try to do them all. Like you said, get the person that's the best that does it, get them to do it. Then your executive committee or whoever, you can look at them and say, okay, this is good. And then there's softwares that are like Trainual that you can actually go on and do it. There's I think Scribe How something or whatever that you can use when you're actually doing it. Take screenshots and you can video and speak while you're doing it. So you have the written. There's software out there like Sweet Success and Touchstone that'll actually do it in the cloud so you can store it. I mean, there's so many different and probably a lot more than a lot more than I do about it, but I just know that it's painful. It's painful, but if you really want to scale a law firm, you've got to do it. I mean, or don't. Everybody's going to come in and you just drop them in and everybody's doing their own thing and nobody's doing it the same way. How can you? It's fine when you got a mom and pop, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people, but when you get to 10, 20, 30, 40 and everybody's doing it in their own way, it's crazy. It's inefficient.
It's not scalable. And, that's such a buzzword, is how can I make my law firm scalable? And you really have to have those infrastructure pieces in place in order to go to the next level. You're absolutely right. You can get, when you're a small team and everybody kind of knows what everybody else is doing and we're all together in one place and able to communicate like that, it can work. But once we get past, those couple of people in the firm, you do need those processes in place. And as you get larger and larger, if you didn't put that work in to do it at the beginning, it's harder and harder to do it as your law firm's bigger. And people do, it's not sexy. That work is not sexy. That work is not a magic. I come to this thing and the magic happened at my law firm. You do have to put in that work and put time and effort and possibly money into it to say, hey, how can I make this a priority so that I can scale the firm.
And some of our masterminds are doing lunch and learns every month, and they talk about, not even the process, just teach them like, what's the difference between UIM and UM and what's med pay and, what's the PI case. I mean, stuff that's another thing on top of the processes and procedures. That's just learning, the stuff about what you do and a lot of times if they know, I think they know the reason why you're doing what you're doing. It makes it easier for them to do it. I don't know. Just my thoughts.
Oh, 100%. You nailed it. I mean, giving your team the why behind things, anytime there's change at a firm, it's hard. Change is hard for all of us, right? And
It
sometimes
is.
there's big changes at a firm. We may be switching case management software and going through this arduous process of a conversion from one system to another. Your team gets frustrated and they worry. I just worked with a firm recently, and literally all they did was tweak one field in their case management software, and it caused an absolute uproar. And the reason that it caused an uproar was because nobody told the team they were doing it, and nobody told the team the very easy reason behind why they were doing it. And if that step had just been taken to say, hey, heads up, we're about to make this change, your screen's going to look a little bit different, here's the reason why, it's going to make it better for everybody, boom. There's going to still be some people that it takes a little bit longer for that change to be comfortable than others, but at least they know the why behind it and it makes sense.
Yeah, what I used to do, and I still do it here at Pilma, if I see something I want to change or I think we need to do this, I bring in I call them my leaders, the influencers, the people that I know everybody's going to follow.
Yep.
I'll say, here's our problem, and this is my solution. Now, have you got a better solution or alternative solution? Because I'm all ears. But if you don't, then I want you to jump on board with this. This is why we need to make this change, because this problem or this issue or this whatever it is, that we're not doing this just for the hell of it, just to make more work for everybody. We're actually trying to make less work, but the deal is it might be more work while we do go through the process of changing the dip like you're talking about. But I do it that way, and I still get some resistance sometimes, but the deal is I think it goes over a hell of a lot better because, number one, I put them in the process of deciding it, and so it won't just my idea. I give them a shot coming up with something, and 1 out of 100 times they will come up with something better, but most of the time they can't come up with anything better. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I think that's.
And I think the firms have the opportunity to do that as well on a lot of different fronts, especially when there's a big change, and I keep going back to case management software because that's such a big change at a firm. But if you can take people that are those influencer people in your firm, or even people who are just really good at what they're doing, and give them some buy-in and seek their opinion. Hey, you're in this system every day. These are the things that, or the part of the system that you touch the most. This is what we're struggling with. How would you handle it? Even if you don't necessarily take their exact suggestion, you've given them some buy-in. They became part of that process, and that's important.
Yeah,
it is. That helps. It helps your culture.
I think people respect that. I mean, it makes them feel like you care. You do care what they think. I mean, because I've often said, the people down in the trenches know more what's going on than the general on the hill. I really believe that. You were talking about something else too, Mary Ellen. It's these processes and stuff. What I've found every time I've tried to do it with any kind of business I've had, I get a lot of resistance from actually key people because they're afraid I'm getting ready to fire them. Well, why do you want me to document all this? I do this well. I mean, what's the problem? You get ready to fire me? They get paranoid. So you have to really, and I do the best I can, but I still don't think that half time they believe me. But that's something you got to deal with. Have you ever seen that happen though, where people are scared? Well, why are we doing this?
Absolutely. And I do think that's one of those, the top performing firms that we work with, I think they've done a really great job with a culture of learning and a culture of sharing information. And that's really hard to do. It is, because you're right. There's people that have been doing a job for a long time and have a lot of ownership over that job. And it's scary to think, hey, I'm going to put this all down and suddenly I'm not going to be valuable to the team, or other people are going to know how to do this and I'm not going to be the special go-to person. And I think that does take it takes some time with your culture to set that up where it does become safe. I can share this information, and we all get better if this information gets shared. We all have a better view of what's going on at the firm. We all become a little bit more valuable. But I think that has to come from the top, and people have to see that it is safe to do that, and that, hey, we didn't do that and then immediately fire this person that we asked to document that, because that can be a blow to the rest of the team. We've got to make it a safe environment to share information.
Absolutely. I agree.
And lot of that is conversations. If we are doing a good job as leaders and we're having one-on-one with our team, we are living by that platinum rule, people do feel a lot safer, and they do feel like they can talk to their leader, talk to their manager about some of those things, about some of those fears. And, you create, just as you suggested, you have that conversation with them and say, this is the why behind it. This is why I want you to do this. You're an incredibly valuable person on the team.
Yeah. I'd say, listen, you could get hit by a bus. I mean, God forbid, but we never know. You get sick, or you could get man quit, and I'll be left in a lurch because I don't know every little thing you do, the processes, and how can I teach somebody else to do it? I'm just very upfront and honest with them. I'm not planning on firing you. That's the worst. But also, and I don't tell them this, but I don't want to be held hostage either.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
you're proofing yourself from that. Absolutely. And that's why you need all of those things documented. That's why you need those processes and procedures.
Yeah.
And culture is not, people think that, hey, I've got maybe an issue with my culture, or some opportunities for improvement with my culture, and so tomorrow I'm going to flip this switch and do these things and it's going to be better. Culture change, it's a process. It is not an event, and it takes time. So people need time to see that this is how it's happening, and it's not overnight. And the bigger the firm it is, it's a big ship, so it takes a longer time to turn. And I think firms sometimes have a false sense that, like, oh, all of these things that need to be improved, as soon as I put them into place, this flip is switched and boom, we're all good. And you do need to give some time.
You got to live it. You got to live it. You got to live it. Like stuff, I encourage people, like, we take one of our core values and put it on our signature line of our email every quarter and make it like a theme for that quarter. I think that's a good way to get it started. Some of our meetings, they got to, we'll pick on somebody and say, all right, what's our core value for this quarter? And they got to spout it out, and you put it on, put it around, in your break rooms and different places like that. And you do shout outs when people exhibit that theme for that quarter. You just do shout outs, everybody's shouting out, great, hey, Mary Ellen, that was great, exemplified our core value of whatever. And I think that kind of, but that takes time, right? Takes time.
100%. And so many, I love that you said that, Ken, because I do feel like, we will help firms kind of, let's talk about what your vision and mission are. Let's talk about what your core values are. And I think some firm owners think, all right, well, I'm putting the work in to develop this mission and vision and core values, and then I'm done. We put it on a sign in the break room.
Get started.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beginning. You have to, as the leader, you've got to live that. You've got to make the team know that that's important. That's something that you're putting a spotlight on. You start your meetings. You talk exactly what you said. You shout out those team members who are living it, and you have crucial conversations with those team members who maybe are struggling to live out.
Yeah, I had a decision to make, and I was like really like back and forth, and then it just hit me like a brick wall. Go back to your core values, Ken. And I looked at one of my core values. I said, it's a freaking easy answer. And I got my executive team again. I said, I failed you because I didn't go back to the core values. And listen, we shouldn't have been having all this conversation back and forth. We didn't go back to our core values. That give us 90% of the time, you'll get your answer any question you got in the firm. If you go to your core values, it's going to tell you the right thing to do, right? I mean, most of the time.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love that so much. And I think firm owners do tend to think, oh, this is this warm and fuzzy exercise. But what you just said is exactly why it's important. When I need to make a decision, I need to ask myself, does this fit in my mission and vision? Does this fit within my core values? If the answer is no, the decision is no. It makes it a lot more easy to make some of those decisions. That's a really great highlighting an exercise that I think is really important.
Yeah. So anything else? We're getting near the end, but
I would say one more thing that I think we see a lot of times when we go into firms they don't have into place is really putting reporting into place, not just having it to have it. Hey, I've got this beautiful set of dashboards or this beautiful set of reporting, but I'm really using it. I am having my team look at those reports and make actionable decisions based on those reports. And it can be hard to set that up, but once that's in place and once that is part of your culture, your mid-level leaders are looking at those diagnostic reports, that is a game changer. And that is one of the things that really helps your firm scale as well, to be able to look at those reports and make decisions based on real data, not just, hey, I think this is what my average fee is. No, I know what my average fee is because I have a report that tells me.
Yeah, I've always preach, you can't manage what you can't measure. So, these are important things, Well,
Got it.
the one that I always went with is you didn't mention. So I want to see if you see this too, or if it's just the people I talk to. Intake. They're always weak. What I'm saying is there's some that it's getting better and better in the last 3 or 4 years. I'm seeing some firms realize all the preaching we've been doing for the last 15 years. But that they get somebody that, a lot of times they don't even have a dedicated person, and then that's disaster because the paralegals are busy trying to get the work out, and satisfy clients, and then you want them to sit there and try to convert a new case into a new call into a client. Lawyers are busy, and not having dedicated intake people, and you talked about accountability, not having what are we measuring, not just how many cases we sign up, the cases we wanted, firm after firm after firm, they'll say, oh yeah, we sign up every case we want. And I used to go in there and no, they're not. And I do those calls and no, they're not. And when it would come out, and now our masterminds, that's part of the deal they do. And they're gasted that they're only signing up 70% of the people that they really want. And I'm saying, there you go. We had one firm in near Charlotte. They didn't spend any more money on marketing, but they went from 60% to 90% in like 8 months. It took about 8 months to get there. But they were signing up 25 more cases a month. And their average fee was $15,000. So what does that tell you? That one thing probably made them, let's see, 300 millions and millions of dollars. It's that one thing, that one door, that one lever, that one hinge.
It's a great point. And I think anybody who works in marketing probably hears from firms, my marketing isn't working, this isn't working. And 9 times out of 10, it's not the marketing that's the problem. It's your intake team that's the problem. It's the lack of training with your intake team, or the inability to have those processes in place for your intake team and train them up appropriately. So you are capturing what your marketing team is putting into that intake. That's
I was talking to one of my masterminds yesterday on a one-on-one call, and he says, my marketing's, I'm just getting, I really cracked the code and I'm really getting in so many calls. He said, but I'm not signing up. It's not in, I'm not getting as many cases in relationship to the more leads I'm getting. And I said, do you measure? You got a dedicated in? Well, not really. I said, do you measure? Do you know cases want to know? I said, because he was saying, what do I need to do next? I said, that's what you need to do next. Then you need to get your processes, because you're going to have to scale. If you're getting this many, even, he's more worried about how I'm going to handle the growth. And I'm in there worried about you're missing a lot of the growth.
Exactly.
You need to fix this up.
There's so many moving pieces in intake. There's so many opportunities for it to, break along the way. So it is a big department to be able to go in and analyze what's happening in your intake department and make some improvements there that make
y'all help with that, I'm sure, don't you? Y'all help with that.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people,
when you mentioned areas, that's one of them.
Yeah. I just see that. I mean, but all that stuff you were talking about today has been great. It really has. And I hope people will take heart to this, because between the two of us, Mary, we got a lot of experience dealing with law firms. So I don't think we've been shooting any, blanks today. I think everything's been real. And,
well, I very much appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. So people want to get up with you or Vista, how's the best way?
Yep. Our website is Vista CT Consulting Team, vistact.com. And anybody's welcome to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to anybody about what they might be struggling with at their law firm that maybe Vista could help them out with.
Thank you so much. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.